Whew. I sure love being the Bugs Bunny character from that 1996 basketball movie Space Jam. I'm sure hoping the female bunny from that 1996 basketball movie doesn't come around the corner and peg me.
Yeah, a while back one of my frequent commenters suggested Looney Tunes games, and considering we hit the like goal on the SpongeBob game video, fucking 8 months ago, it only makes sense to do this. Looney Tunes surprised me with how many games they had across all consoles and handhelds. Of course, modern consoles they've slowed down a bit, probably because Warner hates them, but throughout history they've starred in a variety of games ranging from classic Atari and NES titles to even modern consoles and PC releases. So today, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at all 48, oh my god, Looney Tunes games, from Atari to modern day.
You're the worst around. Everything's gonna bring you down.
So something I should mention is that unlike every other one of these rankings I've done so far, I had no prior knowledge to any Looney Tunes games. Every ranking I've done of this kind, I've had at least one game I usually have played already. So it was nice to know that both my bottom and top game of this ranking was going to be a complete blind surprise. And keep in mind, all 48 of these games vary on what console or handheld they came out on. The oldest on this list was the Atari 2600, while the latest is modern consoles, like PS5. This includes mostly original Game Boy, GBC, and GBA games, and such, all of them had varying levels of gameplay. Such, to be my worst entry, it has to be a game that just isn't fun to play regardless of when it came out. Putting myself in the spot of a kid playing a game like this on its original hardware made my worst entry super easy. So, at the bottom of my ranking is Bugs Bunny Carrot Crazy for Game Boy Color.
Fuck!
Yeah, I don't know how many people are actually going to be pissed off that this is the choice, but bear with me. Across all the major platforms these games were on, I put myself in the shoes of 10-year-old David, who just got this game for his birthday. He loves Looney Tunes, and the idea of having a Looney Tunes game on the go just really amazed him. But then, little David would be amazed in another way. He would play one of the most unfair 2D platformers of all time, a game that would later cement his hatred for Bugs Bunny and all Looney Tunes for that matter. And then it turns out that little David, that sweet 10-year-old boy who once loved Bugs Bunny and his goofy antics, would grow up to be David Zaslav! Oh my god! Okay, let's be real. This is one of the most unfair games I've ever played. It's a platformer on the Game Boy Color following Bugs doing shit, I don't know. Unless it directly ties into the game I'm talking about, I see absolutely no reason to talk about the story in any of these. All you need to know is how unforgiving this game can be. You see this hole I'm stuck in? You might notice I can't get out of it. You know what you have to do? You see this carrot right here? It allows you to glide with Bugs' ear-copter ability. You want to know what ability I didn't realize I had until I did that? Yeah, there's barely anything telling me I had that ability. So a lot of my gameplay was both me trying to get out of this hole and then dying in this exact same spot to falling damage. I have a certain hatred to any 2D platformer that has falling damage. Bubsy did it. What's down, Doc? Pair all of that with some of the most unforgiving platforming and you have a recipe for the easily worst Looney Tunes game in my opinion. Well, it looks like Bugs wasn't the luckiest of the characters when it came to getting games, as our second worst is Bugs Bunny and Rabbit Rampage for the Super Nintendo. This game has similar issues to Carrot Crazy in that it's super unforgiving on certain elements. There are too many damn things going on at once. We got bullshit platforming that's super precise, too many enemies and things that can kill you, very little reaction time to those things that can kill you, sometimes things that you don't even know could kill you. You have no time to attack enemies, so you're bound to take damage. If you think you can just jump on these enemies, you can, but you gotta do this very specific jump button press in order for it to work. For my money, I'm afraid this just wasn't a fun game to play. Sometimes I die and I have no idea what killed me. Or I'll fall thinking I'm fine, but I guess the FDA hasn't inspected this saloon because these bottomless pits are just everywhere. Two things keep this above Carrot Crazy. One is the visual appeal. It is a very pretty game to look at. Two is the weapon variety. You can pick up a different set of items to use on enemies rather than that super precise jump. Other than that, I didn't have too much fun with this one. It's just as frustrating as Carrot Crazy, but it's a bit more appealing to look at. Next up we got Twubble for the Game Boy Color. Yeah, that was a pretty unlucky handheld. This game has a decent idea, but I do believe the GBC just wasn't the right choice for it. You play as Sylvester trying to get Tweety, but Tweety tall putty tat and keeps running from us. I at first thought this was going to be the gameplay here, but rather we go into Granny's house. Or mansion, jeez. I didn't know 401ks covered the Library of Alexandria, bitch. I just know Granny be pimping out banned books like candy, bro. The problem is that the gameplay really doesn't work well with the Game Boy Color. The way Sylvester moves is so janky and awkward. I think this had a good idea, just not the right console. It's just a frustrating experience. Next up we have a Roadrunner game, Death Valley Rally. And you can probably guess my problem with this one. Ass difficult to control. Even more so when you consider Roadrunner is the fastest Looney Tunes character. Clearly not fast enough to outrun Wile E. Coyote, goddamn! And look how this Kim Kardashian enjoyer jumps on. God, get a grip! This makes the running fine, it kind of feels like Sonic. Though it is another game with obstacles you don't even notice until they hit you. I deadass thought this cactus was in the background. But the jumping is so damn awkward. Looking like Barbie up in this bitch. Barbie games? Not yet. 40 likes? Oh, yo! Welcome to a land that's way under, down under. The sky's always yellow in the rain or shine. Come to Tasmania, down in Tasmania, on the Sega Genesis. This game sucks! Tasmania is one of the most underrated when it comes to Looney Tunes shows, next to this underrated gym. So naturally, it got a game on the Sega Genesis. I get greeted to Taz's father mocking me, and we get gameplay, which yes, is just a weak platformer. I give this a little better than the ones I've talked about previously, but other than that, this is pretty rough. What's one thing you think of when you think of Taz? If you're like me, you'd say the spin tornado. And that is a move in this game allowing you to move quicker. Except for one issue, don't bother! The spin is incredibly difficult to control once you start moving, and you can still get hit by shit. Enemies, water, robot crabs, what is going on? On top of that, I can at least give that Rabbit Rampage is a worse game but a prettier game to look at. This is not my favorite visually. Other than that, a much better platformer, but not by a lot. Continuing the Genesis tough luck with Looney Tunes games is Bugs Bunny and Double Trouble. Crazy ass title screen, this is the console Sonic debuted on. Unfortunately, you know there's a reason this game is so low, so what is it? Well, sadly, the game has multiple game modes, but none of them are fun. We first have a play on Duck Season Wabbit Season, a classic in its own right, but sadly, it doesn't explain what you have to do. I had to figure that out all on my own. You gotta have Daffy chase you across these Wabbit Season signs to change them into Duck Season signs. But damn, Daff, are you secretly Roadrunner, bitch? The idea, like Twubble, is cool, but it comes down to Daffy being able to hit us so easily. The other game mode I played was Bully for Bugs. A little better in controlling, but it's still frustrating. Also, it's got this annoying ass flickering thing going on, but I don't think that's on the game. It's just really tough to play, which sadly puts it pretty low. It's above Tasmania purely because of its visuals. Next up is Speedy Gonzales Los Gatos Bandidos on the Super Nintendo. And give credit, of all the major Looney Tunes that got games specific to them, Speedy Gonzales almost always had Sonic clones for games. Which, yeah, checks out. Doesn't make this not bad though. Speedy is pretty tough and slippery to control, though I am finally getting some passable platforming. The goal is to find your buddies and save them from the Los Gatos Bandidos, as the title would suggest. Visually it's pretty good, but it's one of those platformers where it's really easy to lose where you're at, and you take damage pretty easily. Though it does have a pretty crazy dark game over screen. Otherwise, I got nothing, I'm afraid. Sadly, we've come to my least favorite generation for Looney Tunes games, the 7th, the GameCube, Xbox, and PS2. No joke, not a single game from this generation reaches my best tier. They're either in this one or the next tier. And at the bottom of it all is Taz Wanted. I wanted to like this game, but like a good chunk of Taz's lineup, the mere idea of controlling Taz is the problem. It follows Taz breaking out of the Yosemite Zoo. Visually, I really like this one. It looks close to the 2D backgrounds in the cartoons. But Taz talks a little too much for my taste. It's like when Scooby formed complete sentences in Scoob, it just doesn't work. Controlling the game is also pretty damn frustrating. You gotta avoid these catchers, and nice try, dude, you're getting caught! It's hard to even see them, the camera's so shitty. It also just throws bullshit at you. You know what, fuck it, I'm giving y'all homework. I want you to study this scene. Okay, so as we can see, I attempted to twist her past this boxing glove, which did not work. I was then sucker punched by said comically placed boxing glove and sent flying. While down for the count, the fat-nosed security guard zookeeper slash whatever the fuck he is sees me as an easy $500 paycheck. Realizing $500 is somehow better money in 2003, throws his net down, catches me, I lose $500, I kick the fuck out of my monitor. That's my problem. It's a decently controllable game, but when something goes wrong, everything goes wrong. Considering it's the only game on the GameCube, not the best rep.
Alright, so our next game comes from... Fuck!
Yep, in 2023, Game Mill released a Looney Tunes sports game, and I hated all 9 words in that sentence. I have made it very clear I don't care for Game Mill as a company. When their best game is a 6 out of 10 kart racer that's just a shitty version of an 8 out of 10 kart racer, yeah, not too big on them. Well, we got Wacky World of Sports. I will give this is one of the more visually appealing Game Mill titles. I guess when you put out Monkey Ass, it's pretty hard to go down from that. Looks like we got some sports going on. Gotta choose my character here. Ooh! I will follow you way down, wherever you may go. I'll follow you way down till you see my... No. Gotta go with my girl Lola. You know, I made a comment that bunnies don't do anything for me because, like, Judy Hopps didn't really do much for me. Except Lola. I mean, come on, step on me! Basketball, this is chaotic and I do not enjoy it. It's funny, there's a variety of sports games featuring the Looney Tunes. Almost like they got a movie on it or something. And basketball is always the one they somehow never get right. Though we had a massive comeback in the second half on God, Lola got that shit. Next up is soccer. This is literally the same thing as basketball. Tennis. I guess it's different. Also, don't pay attention to how there's two Lolas. Some people were changed by challengers, damn it. I want to see them. Fuck, I want to see. And golf, which is just a really bad version of Mario Golf. I paid $40 for this game. Yep, as Game Mill does best, this game is an overpriced, worse version of a much better game you can get for way cheaper. The sports are all cookie cutter. They work, but there's nothing loony about them. You can pick up items on the basketball court, but they hardly do anything to set your opponent back. I just don't get it. I still have 3 2025 Game Mill games to play, and I pray that one of them is at least a 7 out of 10. I'm not asking for a masterpiece. That's like going to Fidel Castro and asking him not to start the Cuban Missile Crisis. But when I constantly only play 5 out of 10 games from these guys, come on. Next up, we got Desert Demolition on the Genesis. A similar setup to Death Valley Rally, except we're playing as Wily instead of Roadrunner. It's a tad better to control Wily, but it's still pretty tough as a platformer. There are different ways to catch up to Roadrunner, and they are pretty accurate. I can see this coyote maybe suing the company behind these products alongside Will Forte. Please let that succeed. Other than that, it's tough to control. Again, I know I'm repeating that, but that's surprisingly a common thing with these older Looney Tunes games. A lot higher than I expected to put it, we have Acme Arsenal for the PS2. This had the right idea. It's a beat 'em up where you platform across areas as a variety of Looney Tunes. Oh, gee willikers, Xander, what's your problem with it? Could it be the same damn issue you have with another licensed game you talked about last month? Yes. I don't care for the gameplay mechanic of you going around to different areas and beating up enemies and that's the game. I just don't like that kind of thing. It's too repetitive. And sadly, that's what this game offers. So you're probably surprised it's so high considering I don't like this gameplay style. And one thing does save it from being any lower, and that's the weapon variety. Oh, it's still small, but it at least adds something to this. Otherwise, this would be way lower. I hate these types of licensed games. Here's a weird one nobody knows about. This was a crossover game Looney Tunes did with Scooby-Doo that you can get for $20 on Steam. Apparently, it originally came out on 3DS, and I can tell because the Steam version doesn't make any adjustments for PC. The game is one of those common beat-em-ups the 3DS always had. And while it functions a lot better than Acme Arsenal, it is so damn boring. I don't care for the modeling, though I am impressed that this voice actress, who isn't Kristen Wiig, mind you, sounded just like her for Lola.
We can do a little.
Did you say shopping? Okay, I am so in.
Yeah, that's not her. I was pretty impressed. Also, I'm just gonna say it, Kristen Wiig might be my favorite interpretation of Lola. I really might. Looney Tunes show just needs to be talked about.
There is a guy standing on the side of the road who looks just like you. I'm about to hit him.
We play as this little guy and go through levels, avoiding enemies, mindless platforming. It's closer to the top of the worst tier alongside the last one on it due to the fact that they are leagues better than all I've talked about before. It's just really freaking boring. Once you get through each level, it doesn't really have much else. Not a lot of replayability, which is literally the point of a 3DS game. And don't worry if you get hit, the game will give you fruit to bring your health up at a moment's notice. Literally, first thing you break, 30 pieces of fruit come out. Damn, they brought pineapple. This shit is incredible! Sadly, it ties into the fact that it wasn't made for PCs, so while spending $20 on it was silly, I really should have known the handheld it was made for. Otherwise, it's pretty damn straightforward. Also, our character hits that shit after every level.
I fill her up. Balloons!
Our last game in the bad tier is Sheep Raider for the PS1. While the GameCube PS2 generation was the worst for these games, the PS1 and N64 generation were the best. As this is the only PS1 game in this tier, and really, it is just bad but straightforward bad. The game plays as Wile E. Coyote as we try to steal sheep from Sam the Sheepdog's flock. Only one major catch. God damn, is that Sam the Sheepdog or Fredbear, bitch? Get out of here. If Sam even sees your ass, they're serving coyote tonight. Yay-ho! This makes the game ass difficult, but I do give credit, they are trying something different here. The ones below this all pretty much went with regular platforming and it still didn't work for them. I give credit to this one for trying something that should have worked on the PS1. It just didn't, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Starting off my mid-tier is Taz and Escape from Mars for the Genesis. The reason this one places so low on this tier is because I was really tempted to give this one a spot on the tier below because it definitely exhibits those frustrating controls I keep bringing up. But with one of the only times I can control Taz's spin move alongside a decently easy to get down combat system, I couldn't give this one a spot on that tier. Rather, it just comes really close. The level design can trick you sometimes and it is pretty easy to get hit. but otherwise, I'm not as mad with it as others. It's just a mediocre platformer at the end of the day. Next up is Speedy Gonzales Aztec Adventure for the Game Boy Color. Not much on this one. It controls better than Los Gatos Bandidos, but I dock it a lot because at this point with the boat, I go flying off. I died twice here, and to this day, watching the footage back, I can't figure out what I did wrong. Otherwise, again, like Escape from Mars, it's a much needed improvement over the games before it, but it sadly doesn't have much else to offer. Next up, we got Cartoon Conductor for the DS. My problem with this one is really simple, it is too damn slow. Like, not bad, the idea is actually pretty alright as you act as a conductor with the stylus being your conductor wand, whatever that's called, but the tutorial alone takes you forever. Once you get past that, it's simple but works alright, so I give it a few points for that. Next up is KG Capers for the Genesis. The game follows Sylvester trying to get Tweety. Again, like Cartoon Conductor, incredibly simple, but at least decent in control. The game's whole idea is just you as Sylvester chasing Tweety. Sadly, I'm getting to the games I really don't have too many notes on. Just know that this is a pretty dang alright experience, if not a little boring. Next up is Collector Alert for the Game Boy Color. This one is really ambitious, and I give it credit for that. You play as Bugs going on a journey, having some Legend of Zelda quirks, and I mean that for the time this came out. Not nowadays. On God, if Purple Lamp made that, I'd play it. If Purple Lamp just made licensed game, dude, Titans of the Tide was so fucking good! Like most of the games on this tier, it's pretty basic, but incredibly unique, and I always give a game like this credit for that. Back in action on the GBA, I don't know. A finicky platformer that reminds me a bit of the Scooby-Doo GBA game. Literally all the same quirks as this one. Except this one's a little more appealing to look at. Next up we got Looney Tunes 2 on the Game Boy. Enough said. Imagine you just turned 50. You're so excited because your family is hosting a big old celebration in your honor. You got everyone there. Your kids, their kids, Andrew Jackson, they're all there. And when it comes time for cake, they smack you in the face but tell you they love you still. That's kind of what Bugs Bunny Birthday Blowout is. A celebration of 50 years of Bugs Bunny. It's a pretty by the numbers NES platformer that acts a lot like Mario 2 for some reason. In that it doesn't give a flying fuck how normal platformers work. Walk on water, bitch! It's not nearly as bad as that analogy, but it feels weird that this celebrates 50 years of one of the most popular cartoon characters of all time. Why is Daffy after us? That's our friend and possibly boyfriend in Looney Tunes show I'd have to rewatch. They were mutually gay lovers, Your Honor. We're starting to get to halfway decent with Duck Dodgers, the Marvin missions for the Super Nintendo. Not much to say here, it's a platformer following Duck Dodgers going after Marvin the Martian. It still has the problems I've mentioned earlier, but not nearly as bad, though the enemies are a tad frustrating. Next up in the ranking is Speedy Gonzales on the Game Boy. Again, we're at the harmless but forgettable part of the ranking where as long as the game functions, it doesn't get bashed too hard. Next up is Marvin Strikes Back for the Game Boy Color. If the layout and gameplay looks familiar, then congratulations, you can remember the game I talked about 6 entries ago. Marvin Strikes Back was made by the same company behind Collector Alert, and plays about the same, with ever so slightly better controls. It's easy to get lost, but hey, I can jump in this one. Tasmanian Devil Munching Madness came out on the Game Boy Color and at least had somewhat a creative setup. You play as Taz looking for these coins by island hopping. While the jumping is especially rough, other than that, it controls fine. And has some neat visuals. The spin is sadly not as good as the last Taz game, but I think the broad map and halfway decent gameplay give it a 1-up. Next up we got Tweety's High Flying Adventure for the Game Boy Color. Yeah, we're just getting all of these out of the way, huh? This one follows Tweety going off to catch him some putty tats. That's the base gameplay, but it controls nice. It's a bit less visually appealing due to this being, I believe, an earlier game than the others. You have items you can use to catch the cats. You have my attention. You could be reporting on the OJ trial and somehow you'd be the most interesting person in the room. Other than that, you get the gist. Like most of these, very little to say, but we finally get to the creative shit. So, for some reason, the two categories Looney Tunes cooked the most in were sports games and racing games. Case in point, one of the better PS2 gen titles, which sadly isn't saying much, was Looney Tunes Space Race. A lesser racing game to one a generation older, but it's still fine. The racing is still fast-paced, but a little too easy. And the other one on this list, it felt like the racers kept up. Once I got a lead, it felt like clockwork with these laps. Though I gotta give credit, these tracks absolutely cook. Though two things bog it down. One, you can't play as Lola, she's a news reporter again. I mean, that's still hot, so whatever. Second, you accelerate by holding down the right bumper. Ew. Why not just the right trigger of the X button? Get real. I'm sorry, we're not bringing that back. Otherwise, it functions, which is more than anything in the red tier, I'll say that much. $40 for 4 generic sports. I gotta stop giving Game Meal money, on God. Well, that's just never gonna happen. On Jermaine Clement, a Game Meal ranking is gonna happen whether I like it or not. So 4 of these games are all in the same quadrilogy, the Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle games. games. The first game came out on the NES, the second came out on the Game Boy, while the third and fourth dropped on the GBC. The worst of these, sadly, was the second one, but that doesn't really mean it's bad. It's just the weakest of them. All four of them have similar gameplay where you play as bugs collecting a certain object throughout the level, and specifically the sequels, it was a certain amount of keys. This one's just the tamest, it really doesn't have that much that stands out, but it's still a decent enough sequel. The only Xbox exclusive, I hate how specific they got, Loon's The Fight for Fame. Now, remember in last week's Tooney video how I said in the 2000s the people behind Garfield were desperate to make him cool? Apply that to Looney Tunes and way worse. We got lunatics, space race could be considered. Hell, even before that, they teamed up with fucking Michael Jordan. They just desperately wanted the Looney Tunes to be cool. And this was one of those cases. However, it's not as pandering as, say, Lunatics. This one is very similar to Shrek Super Slam, which was one of the better DreamWorks games I played. So it makes sense in a way that this game controls fine, but gets really boring. The gameplay is super straightforward. Beat up other Looney Tunes trying to score a part in Yosemite Sam's movie. So it's kind of a mix of Super Slam and Lights, Camera, Pants. That's cool. Other than that, the gameplay gets a tad repetitive, but I really like the visuals on this one. Yet you know it's bad that both Atari games are in the top 20 of this list. The lesser of the two Atari games, which isn't saying too much, was Roadrunner. This one's a lot more advanced than the other one, which isn't saying much again. It's a simple high-score based running game run from Coyote while collecting birdseed. This just proves Atari games knew best, huh? Daffy Duck Foul Play on the Game Boy Color is a basic platformer with way too much effort put into Daffy's animations. Other than that, not too much on this one. We're almost done with the mid-tier. The last of the mid-tier is sadly the last of the PS2 games back in action. Based on the movie, and I do mean only the title, this basically has nothing to do with the actual film. It's a functioning platformer where you can play as both Bugs and Daffy. I gotta say, I have almost nothing. This is the best PS2 game, but sadly that doesn't mean much. It's by the numbers, but god, that's a miracle in comparison to Acme Arsenal. Thankfully, we reached the best tier, the top 16 Looney Tunes games. And starting the tier off, at the bottom is Duck Amuck for the DS. I wanted to like this a lot more since I really enjoyed the short. As a matter of fact, it's one of my favorite Looney Tunes shorts. And thankfully, there's a decent variety when it comes to the gameplay. But sadly, this has a similar issue to the Big One game from the SpongeBob ranking. I didn't play this on the original hardware, and this ranking suffers because of it. But thankfully, it's a really creative way to express the short, even using footage from said short. A decent start to my best tier. Next up is Cheese Catastrophe for the Genesis. Our last Speedy Gonzales game, it functions way better than the others, had some great art to look at. And hey, it's kinda fun to explore the levels. Kinda proves it doesn't take much to impress me. Space Jam on the PS1 is a foolproof concept. A basketball simulator where, yeah, gimme her. This one's chaotic but very fun. It literally does what Wacky World of Sports charged me $40 to do and it failed, and keeps the game interesting while also keeping it simple for us basketball enthusiasts like myself. Honestly, it's a nice reminder that the PS1 also had 2D games, which was a scary time. Next up, we got one of the PS1's platformers featuring Bugs Bunny, Lost in Time. I'll admit this one's a classic in the Looney Tunes lineup, but it definitely has some issues. The game follows Bugs going through time, collecting timepieces, and listening to this creep. The game is pretty damn impressive for the time, further cementing the PS1 as one of the top dogs for this lineup. The levels are pretty unique, but it's got two issues keeping it down so low on this tier: the controls and the camera. The controls are fine, but jumping is so awkward. I'm starting to think that was a regular thing on the PS1. And this camera is something else. It's so janky and I ended up dying at times because I couldn't see in front of me. Other than that though, I see why this one's such a classic. It's really fun. Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday for the Super Nintendo might seem like a standard platformer at the time, and for the most part it is. You play as Porky, one of the only times we do that, I found that weird, as you traverse a nightmare setting. While the platforming itself is fine, the real catch are these creative interstitial segments. Seriously, for the Super Nintendo, you guys have no idea how impressive these visuals are. Also, I really like the detail in Porky's stop animation. What up, dope? Considering some of the other platformers for the Super Nintendo, this one is super fun, and most importantly, it stands out in a good way. Yeah, you know it's bad that an Atari 2600 game is almost in my top 10. The other Atari game, Taz, is a surprisingly fun time where you play as Taz collecting cheeseburgers and avoiding obstacles. It's high score based like most Atari games, but it is solid. Very addictive gameplay. Guys, look! We have reached our top 10, and starting us off is B-Ball for the Super Nintendo. As I said, sports games were common with Looney Tunes, and one of the best was inarguably B-Ball. Like Space Jam, it's super straightforward, but unlike Wacky World of Sports, it adds a lot of wacky things to get in the way and add strategy. Makes the game interesting. I don't know what else to say, B-Ball is a solid Looney Tunes basketball game. It's just that right amount of chaotic and fun to make it a top 10 contender. Acme Animation Factory for the Super Nintendo is such a solid concept. It essentially acts as a console budget version of an animation software. For kids, this certainly isn't the same thing Warner Brothers use in their actual shorts. With that, the variety of things you can do really impressed me here. I made this. Hey, there's a reason I'm into animation, not making animation. There's honestly so much to do, and it's pretty damn solid. I could see this being a gateway to a kid's 90s dream of making his own Looney Tunes cartoons. Oh, how sad. Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle is one I always hear grouped in with Birthday Blowout, specifically from AVGN, and while I can see why it could be frustrating, I had a blast with this one. While the sequels focus on key collecting, this one's about collecting carrots. I am ashamed at how much fun I had with this one. Ah yes, that classic Bugs Bunny line. Next up is the only N64 game, Duck Dodgers. Based on the Daffy Duck character, once again we got one of the most solid 3D platformers in the lineup. You play as Duck Dodgers trying to take down Marvin by traversing planets. The coolest thing for me is the level design, and it's got a pretty sick game over screen. Swear, those were the days.
Maybe it's time for you to find another job, Dodgers.
And you want fries with that extra large, you fat fuck! If I had to complain, I'd say the camera's a tad jank, but that's about it. It throws in some unique mechanics for the time, and for me, it's just a fun 3D platformer, but isn't quite the best one. Just outside of my top 5 is Looney Tunes on the Game Boy. This one really got me as it actually throws a variety of gameplay based on what character you're playing as. It's one of the more unique when it came to the handheld stuff. Taking my number 5 is Me Cheating. Yeah, I'm including 2 different games, but they're part of the same series, they're on the same handheld, and they play the same, so fair? Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle 3 and 4 both came out on the Game Boy Color, and honestly, they're practically the same game. You play as Bugs having to collect a series of keys to move on. Both have the same gameplay, but each one does a different thing than the other. For the third one, I like the level design a lot more. While the fourth, sure, the level design was a tad jumbled, but listen to these tunes! Pun totally intended. If I had to specifically rank, I'd say the third just inches ahead of the fourth. The levels were a tad better in that one. Still, what a good series of sequels. Next up is Bugs Bunny and Taz Time Busters. Now, you're probably hearing that title and saying, Xander, you whore, you just talked about that. No, it's different. In this one, you play as Bugs Bunny and Taz going through time. I actually really like the system with playing as Bugs and Taz. It doesn't just have Taz follow you or anything like that. No, you can actually switch between the two, and they have different abilities. You can summon the other with the press of a button. Really convenient. While the majority of it's platforming, it throws in some good variety. Like this soccer game with these Aztec guards.
We'll crush ya, Bunny!
It improves so much on the last time travel-based PS1 Bugs Bunny game. Even the platforming is way better. It's close to being in my top 3, but trust me, the top 3 is tough. Taking bronze is LeBron's James, I'm sorry. Yeah, for as bad as Space Jam: A New Legacy is, surprisingly one of the best things to come out of it was this free Xbox download that is a tie-in to the movie. The game is a classic retro beat-em-up and a fun one at that. My god, this is smooth. Yeah, you already know who I'm playing as every time. I'll make love to you. She's played by Zendaya. I was surprised for this being free how much fun it really was. Controlling is silky smooth and incorporates the basketball in a fun way. It does kinda crowd the screen with enemies, but shit, I'm playing as LeBron. Wait, no, I'm not. Why would I ever want to do that? I have the choice to be Zendaya's Fursona. I'm gonna be Zendaya's Fursona! It's short, but it's free. I really do think for that factor alone, it being this fun is a true miracle. Taking silver is Tweety and the Magic Gems for the GBA. This is a Mario Party-esque game where you gotta collect gems to save Tweety from turning into stone. The minigames severely lack, but I give credit, traveling the map is fun. They throw a few things in there to keep the game interesting. You can even duel for an opponent's gems, that's fun. Oh no, his little birdie nuts! This goes to show it doesn't have to be the showiest game out there to place high. It just being a fun time proves to be the best it can. And ladies and gentlemen, the #1 Looney Tunes game is Looney Tunes Racing on the PS1. Remember how I said that there was one other racing game before Space Race that was 10 times better? This is that racing game. This is one of the soundest Mario Kart clones out there. It's fast-paced, but not too fast-paced. The pickups are fun to use. You son of a bitch, I'm in. The tracks are phenomenal for the PS1. Although, I gotta love the laziness in Duck Dodger City. Like, they really said, the show lasted 2 years, fuck it. I don't think it matters because, this came out before the show, and these tracks absolutely slap. Add that with buttery smooth controls, fun racing, great and fitting pickups. That is what makes Looney Tunes Racing the best Looney Tunes game. Looney Tunes means a lot to me. Without it, my humor would never have evolved from the classic fart humor of my youth. Despite me going blind into this, I had a lot of fun with this ranking. There was such a variety in these games, and even with the bad apples, I'm glad to say, that's all.
Where's Multiverses, bro? Where? You got it in the thumbnail, so where's Multiverses? Yeah, about the Multiverses, yeah. Where is it? You fucking moron! It's not really a Looney Tunes game, you know? There's multiple characters, there's Shaggy in it. Oh, so it should have been in the Scooby-Doo video. Oh, great to know. What the fuck? Dude, I want to be done. I've been talking about these for 30 minutes. You better fucking include it. It's in the thumbnail. It's right front and fucking center. He's got it.